Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas, Perek Vav. We are in middle of Halacha Vav, and God willing, we will start today also Halacha Zayin. In the Ois V'Hadr's edition, we are going to Daf Samach Tes. We left off on Daf Samach Tes Amud Aleph, but we're going to repeat. We're going to go back to Daf Samach Tes Amud Beis to the last line of the Amud Ab Oven. And in order to be able to properly go forward, let's quickly make a chazara. Let's make a recap. So we had before a discussion, the negeya, the challenge of what is one to do when you go from the 7th day of Sukkot into the 8th day of Sukkot. Not b'chutz la'aretz, in chutz la'aretz, since there was a suffix, and now because of that suffix, minig aviseinu b'yodeinu, therefore many eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. They don't make a brach. But when you live in Eretz Yisrael, and there was never a doubt as to which day was the 15th day of Tishrei, and the Torah says Basukah is Teishvu Shivas Yomim, and we have this general rule of not adding to the mitzvahs, one is not allowed to sit in the sukkah on the 8th day. Now, another detail, just to review it. If a person sits in the sukkah on the 8th day, bekavana, with their intent to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah, that is when they violate the biblical violation of Baal Tosef. However, if a person is sitting in the sukkah on the 8th day, like we learned in the Charedim, because he built a sukkah on the rooftop, the house is very stuffy, and it's more pleasant, it's more pleasurable, for whatever reason, to sit in the sukkah. And your kavanah is not to do the mitzvah. Even there's a problem of marasayin, because someone who's looking at you might get the impression that you're sitting in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres l'shem mitzvah sukkah. So for that, the Gemara gave us on Daf Samach Ches Amud Beis two solutions. One by Rabbi bar Ashi, who says you have to invalidate the sukkah on the 7th day. Guys, don't forget the 7th day is not Yom Tov, right? On Yom Tov, Soisid is a problem. Not on the 7th day, with all the details that we learned yesterday. Then Rabbi Shua ben Levi says that if you make Kiddush in your house on the night going into Shmini Atzeres, you only make Kiddush there, and later you go have the meal up there on the roof on the sukkah, that will take away the marasayin, the very fact that people look at you going into your sukkah, and they see you did not make Kiddush there. So where did you make Kiddush? You made Kiddush in the house. If you make Kiddush in the house, you know that you're not chayv to sit in the sukkah. That resolves. The question is, that's really what we're trying to chop over here. Rabbi bar Ashi doesn't give that solution. His solution is that you have to invalidate your sukkah towards the end of the 7th day of V'shayin Rab. Why does he not give that solution? So really, we want to know whether he argues with Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, or whether, not necessarily are they arguing. Each one is giving a different solution. Now, why would you think he's arguing with Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi? So that led us into the second topic, which is really the link to the sugya that we learned on Daf Samach Ches. And that is, these are the words, guys, that when a person makes a shinui makoim, when you change your place, it affects your obligation of making brachas. As we learned in the Braisa, that even though people in the times of Chazal, prior to a meal, they would gather in one room, and over there would be served wine, over there would be served appetizers, upon which they made brachas. When they went into the other environment in which they had the meal, and there they were again served appetizers. Remember, parperes, prior to the meal, they needed to make a bracha again. Why do you have to make a bracha again? You already made a bite of priagafen, you already made a bite of mezainis, and that's the rule of shinui makom. So now let's come back to our sugya and sukkah. Like, how can Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi even give a solution, Chevra, that you make Kiddush in your house, and then you go up to your roof and you make Kiddush over there? How would that even help? How would that help your Mashana Makoim? Now, not only do we have the concept of Shinui Makoim, Benegeya, Birchas Hanahanin, similar, not the same, but similar, is the topic that we left off, which is Kiddush B'Makim Seudah. So we have another Machlokes. We have other statements in Daf Samach Ches Amud Beis. We have the sheet of Shmuel. Shmuel says that if you make Kiddush in one house and you change your mind and you don't eat the meal in this house, you go to another house, in the second house you have to make Kiddush again. Why? Because Kiddush has to be B'Makim Seudah. Now I know that there are different girsa'os. Simply since we're reading inside the Marafulda and then we're going to read inside the Pnei Moshe, and they quoted Rabbi Yeshua, so it's Rabbi Chanina. We're going to go with Chinina or Chinina b'shem Rabbi Yeshua. We're going to say Rabbi Yeshua holds when you have an issue with your sukkah, meaning you don't want to eat in your house, you want to dafki eat in the sukkah. It's geshmak to eat in the sukkah. Make kiddush in the house. That's what he says. Mamash like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and go eat upstairs. It's question is he arguing with Shmuel? Is he not arguing with Shmuel? Because what about kiddush b'makam su'ud? That's where we left off. So on that we have a machlokas hamoyroim. Rav Oven say that they don't argue. Rav Mani say that they do argue. Now what we're getting to at the end is according to Rav Mana, which we didn't learn yet, that holds that Shmuel and B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua are not of the same opinion. They argue. He will also hold that Rabbi Chia bar Ashi, right before, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi argue. In other words, then it's going to be a double machlokes, two on one side and two on the other side. Now we already learned the girsa of the Marafulda yesterday, so we're going to restart learning the sugya. Amar Rav Oven, the last line on Samachesam Beis, Shmuel says you make kiddush in one environment, you go to another environment, you have to make kiddush again. Okay, kiddush mamakam suda. By the way, that's learned. I'm going to say that yesterday. The karas ala Shabbos, oinig. So Chazal say, oinig means eating. Oinig means pleasure, but it's referring to the meal. Calling out Shabbos is a remes to making kiddush. So the karas ala Shabbos, where do you call out Shabbos? That's the source, yeah. That's the whole point. In other words, they argue. Because if you have to make kiddush again, what's the point in making kiddush in your home when you're gonna have to make kiddush again? You're back to the marasayin, exactly. So they argue. So on that says Rabbi and Veloy Pligan, they don't argue. Now we're gonna read the gear so we have actually inside the inside the Gemara Bifnim, not the way we read it with the Marafulda. And to make it work, the Pnei Moshe got very, very creative. Now the stam of the gear so we had was correct. It's so twisted the logic, but it works. So let's go straight into the Pnei Moshe. Let's go straight into the Daf Samach Tesamadal. Now, why? That mad the mad, and we're going to go with Rabbi Yeshua. Mad means Amar. That which Rabbi Yeshua says, guys, what did Rabbi Yeshua say? Rabbi Yeshua said, B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua, make kiddush in your house and then go eat on the roof. When is that? B'Shaloi hoye b'datoi lechol b'bayis achar. When do you not have to make kiddush again? When do you not have to make kiddush again? When you did not have in mind to eat the bayis achar. That's the opposite of what we said yesterday. Pasha doesn't fit, guys. Halk up. So look inside the Pnei Moshe. Koloimer, that b'shashe kiddush, when you made kiddush, you did not have in mind to eat here. Why is this called bayis achar? It's very creative, the Pnei Moshe, because where are you eating de facto? On the roof. On the roof. Relative, lefiyerech, the roof, the place where you made kiddush is called the bayis achar. In other words, he ends up explaining it the same way the Marafulda explains it. He just makes it fit into the words by getting very creative. So let's read it again. Why is it called bayis achar? So he explains the Pnei Moshe. Because here is the other house from where you are de facto eating. The guy de facto is eating on the sukkah, he's eating on the roof. In other words, what did he have in mind? He had in mind to eat where he will be eating. Where is that? On the roof. Therefore, the Hilkach Ka'amar, that's why we say B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua that the Yachol Lechatchila Lekadosh B'Teich Beisei Al Manas Lechol B'Sukkah the Ein Kan Shinoi Da'as Mishah HaKiddush U'Shas HaSu'ud. In other words, Das. Let's go with the words Das, the Hasidic words that Das is Mekashet, right? Hanya Perek Dalet. In other words, the Das, when I make Kiddush here, and Bedati, I'm eating over there, my Das connects the Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Everyone agrees to the concept that Kiddush has to be B'Makom Seudah. The question is, what does it mean? Does it mean technically, or does it mean no, that when you made Kiddush, you were making it Bedas to eat it in the place of the Seudah, and that would work. I want to add a very important nuance. In other words, everyone agrees to Shmuel. I just want you to know that in Arvei Psachim, which is where we have this discussion, in the Bavli, the Gemara says, B'Shem Shmuel, and Danny mentioned it yesterday, that Kiddush, until today, in many Ashkenazic shuls, is made Friday night in the shul. It's made in the shul. So the Gemara says over there that when you make Kiddush in the shul for that niyam, all right, when you go home, you got to make Kiddush again. Problem is, according to Rabbi Oven, Rabbi Oven is saying that even Shmuel is moida, there's no machlekes, that if you had das, it's called b'makom suda. The problem would be, why l'shmuel in Arvei Psachim, why would you have to make Kiddush again when you had das? When people make Kiddush in the shul, you think they didn't know they're eating at home? They knew they're eating at home. The Aniyah made in the shul. The Balabatim, they lived in the city, they heard Kiddush in the shul. We're speaking about people that didn't have to make it for the B'nai Bayis, even if they're alone. You're mechuyev to make it again. Why? Why? According to Rabbi Oven, does he argue with the Arvei Psachim sugya? The answer is no, he does not. Even according to our sugya, this is an important add-on. That's what the Rishonim say in Arvei Psachim. In Shmuel is speaking about one home, shul, another home. Our topic is in the same home, guys, downstairs, roof. I want to add, that's an important note. In other words, some say that even this sheet of Rabbi Oven, das is only mekashed if you're not mamish going to another place. Makes sense. If you're going from the shul to your house, your das cannot make a connection. But if you're going from, let's say, in the house itself, from one room to the other, there is where das will make a difference. Okay. Now, let's keep on going with the Pnei Moshe. Amar Shmuel. That what? In Kiddush B'Bayezeh, you got to make Kiddush again. Now, again, he's staying faithful to the words we have in the Gemara, which are difficult. So again, he'll use that same concept. Where he did have in mind. If he had in mind, then he has to make Kiddush again. So again, what's the Bayis Achar? This house is the Bayis Achar. Because you ended up eating over there. Whereas if you had in mind to eat here, and then you went over there, you got to make Kiddush again. Why is it called Acher? Says the Pnei Moshe, who Bayis Acher mizeh, because it ended up being a Bayis Acher from the one that ended up eating it. Bottom line is that just like the Marav Fulda, who had it easier because he had a different girsa, the Pnei Moshe and the Marav Fulda are of the same opinion in understanding the Shita of Reb Oven. Yes. Yes, it is, because it's in your same property. It doesn't make a difference. That is where, according to some Rishonim, even according to Rabbi Oven, would not be good. Okay. Now, Rav Mana disagrees with this whole thing. Rav Mana says das is not mekashed, mekoymos. Let's read it inside. Rav Mana holds that no, that all of these Amoraim, that B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua, we argue with Shmuel. In other words, Shmuel will not hold of the solution of Rabbi Yeshua. Shmuel doesn't hold that you can make Kiddush in your house and go eat the Suda in the Sukkah. You'll have to make Kiddush again, and therefore there's Maras Einish. Doesn't help. And therefore, let's go back to how we began. Rabbi Chia bar Ashi and Rabbi Shua ben Levi, they argue. And you know why Rabbi Chia bar Ashi says, Tzadich Adam Lifsal Sukkasim Ibra'idiyim? Because he does not agree with Rabbi Shua ben Levi being Mekadosh B'Toich Beis, so it won't be a solution. Beautiful. Read it inside. Amar Rav Mana, Asya the Shmuel ke Rabbi Chia. Here we have Oishia. We're going with Rabbi Yeshua. Again, different girsois. Can Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and machloek is whether das could connect or not. In other words, some people hold it does. Some people hold that it does not. And who do we paskin like? That's the Iker. Look inside the Rashid Ilio, left column, 5 lines before the bottom of the column, says that Rashid Ilio v'kaimelon, and we paskin kishmuel. Now what? The en kiddush el b'makim suuda k'deisim b'perek arvei psach, and the tzorech lachzer ol lekadesh va'af al pi sheb'shas kiddush datoi lechel b'bayis acher lo yatzam. Beautiful. And again, he concludes, and that's why Rabbi Chia bar Ashi did not give the solution of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Okay, guys, let's go right. No, we do it good. We make Kiddush and Shul. It's Makam Seudah. and therefore our kiddush is good. You don't have to make kiddush again. You make kiddush if some of your bnei bayis did not hear kiddush. That's because of the din of arvus. In other words, since they did not fulfill their obligation, I'm a chayv to make it for them.
In this case, it's a kiddush at his house, and it's Shvius, and he has some zones. When he goes there, he just is going to wash. He doesn't have to make another.
Okay, so David is really asking a question. That again, like, why did Rabbi Chia bar Ashi not give the solution of Rabbi Shua ben Levi according to Rav Mana? Because it was a non-solution. It would have been a better. In other words, it's a better solution. Instead of passing the sukkah, it's easier. So he said, I can't hold of it because it's going to be Suda. So he says, okay, so make kiddush in the house, wash in the house. So I want to suggest maybe, oh, not maybe. That's the whole point. Thank you. We're making a correlation between Kiddush V'Makom Su'uda and your obligation to make brachas when you were Mashana Makim. In other words, he holds that when you go upstairs, you're going to have to make everything again because you're a Mashana Makim. Mashana Makim means you would have to make Birchas Hanahenen again, which means you're going to have to make Boyer Pri Agafen again. And if you're going to make Boyer Pri Agafen again, then there's still not a sign. Since you have to make Ber Pregafan again, since you're going to have to watch again, we don't paskin the way, by the way. We paskin that when you make, even by Hamoitzi, if I wash here and the dati to be mashlim the Suda by you, we paskin, I can do that as long as I eat a kazayis by you. They didn't hold of that. No, these are the shitas that hold that Shinui Makim Benegei Birchas Hanahenen. Forget about Kiddush. It's such a disruption, you'll have to make all of the brachas again. And by Sukkah, the issue is Marasayim. So even though you're not going to make the whole Kiddush, but you're going to make a Boyer Pri Agafen. If a guy makes Boyer Pri Agafen, he has to wash again. It looks like he's beginning the meal. So you have a Marasayim. Very good. Oh, now let's go back. We got to move. Amar Rav Ami. Now, Rav Ami, according to the Charedim, there's a big machlokes what this goes to. The Charedim is in middle of the wide lines. Rav Ami says that this is going back to the Braisa that we learned yesterday. In the Seder of a Su'uda, there was a whole etiquette of how they ate. The point is that all of this began in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, the question in the Mishnah is, you have competing values. There is a value of V'rav Am Hadras Melech, which would allow, when people are gathered together and everyone has to make a bracha, it would allow for one to make the bracha prior and post for all, and that's advantageous because that then you have the V'rav Am Hadras Melech. They didn't make it, Shemei HaKohen. Now, Shemei HaKohen is effective even without answering Amin. That nuance will be needed for a moment. But then there is Yemale Pi Tihilosecha. That pasuk tells us that it's better for you to answer Amin. I quoted the wrong pasuk. We'll leave this pasuk in a moment. You have to answer Amin. Doesn't come from me. You have to answer Amin. Okay, better. But even if you don't answer Amin, Shemei HaKohen. Remember that. So that's Mitzad Ech. Mitzad Sheni, we learned, when are you able to say B'rav Am Hadras Melech? When can you do that? When people are together. If they are individuals that physically are together, but they're not eating together, then you can't do that. How did the Mishnah establish the criteria for what is separate, what's together? If they're only sitting, they're not together. If they're reclining, they're together. And we learned in the Charedim other very important nuances. How do we apply it nowadays? Yes. Now, what did we learn in the Braisa? That before they would have a meal, they would go into a room, and there they would not recline. Remember that? There they would only be sitting. They would be sitting on little benches. So in that pre-meal room, everyone has to make a bracha on their own. That's what we learned. But then when they were Mashana Makim, they got to make a bracha again. But now they are reclining on couches. Now that they are reclining, one person makes it for all. And the Braisa was not speaking about bread. The Braisa was speaking about wine and parperes in the pre-meal room. The Braisa was speaking again about wine and pasa babakisnin in the meal room. And yet the Braisa was applying the klal of the Mishnah, Yoishvim, one, everyone makes on their own. Heisevu, one makes it for all. So says Rav Ami, Zoi Soy Meres, Shenechlakim, even Bapedes, which means that in Bavli, we have a machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yechanan. Rav says that the Mishnah that we learned, Halacha Vav, is only speaking about bread. Here's guys. For other foods, reclining, which Bechlal was not commonly done, even then, if you're not having bread, is not relevant. Reclining is not that which establishes togetherness. The din of Yoshvim versus Heisev was only for bread. That is enough. Rabbi Yechanan in the Bible, he says, no, it's by everything. So our Gemara, that Shenachlakim means that people are not reclining, they are considered separated, and therefore you can't do the Shemea Ka'ina, but Rav Amadra, it won't work, is even bepeiros, not only by bread, because that is the case of the Braisa. So says the Charedim based on the Girsa that we have in the Gemara, and let's move on. The next part of the Mishnah was what happens if wine is brought in the middle of a meal. Wine, the bracha of wine in the case of the Mishnah was not made prior to eating. The bracha of Boire Priyagofen is not included in the Hamoitzi, Lakula Alma. And now they are reclining. One person made Hamoitzi for all. Nevertheless, the Mishnah says that every person has to make the bracha for themselves. Question is why? Right? Let's go on. That says, you see the Hemshech? We already established that the reclining or sitting is connected even to Peitus. Fine. They're reclining. One person made a hamoitz. We read the Pnei Moshe because of you might choke, but we're going to get to it over here. So says the Gemara, Peitus means even not bread, for everything. Bracha prai, bracha pros, shalu has been zoima bepnei ma. I don't understand. That when they're reclining, the hamoitzi was made one for all. So Amar Lahem, that's what I meant by the competing values, because there's another problem. That is, now, that's the thing. Now, what's it mean, she'ein beis habliya panui? Because Shemea Ka'ina works. Shemea Ka'ina works. They're reclining, so you have Baravam. But it's even better. Yeah, I said correct. Yimale Piti Hilosecha is the source that you should answer Amen. In other words, if you want to do it right. Doing it right means not only Shemea Ka'ina, answer Amen. Answering Amen is dangerous. While you're in the middle of eating, we're so careful not to say a word in the middle of eating because Shema, right, that the Kana will be opened up before the Veshet, as Chazal say. That means that the windpipe can open up before the food pipe, and the food that you're eating or the liquid that you're drinking, God forbid, that will go down your food pipe, yet will go down the Kana, the windpipe. And then the person, God forbid, can choke. So because of that sakana, what do? Every person makes a bracha on their own, which is very good, because if I am busy eating and you're making a bracha, I have to say amen when you're finished, right? Amen yisayma, and amen. I can't say amen when it's convenient for me. If I make a bracha on my own, I'll finish swallowing, and then I'll make a bracha, and I won't choke. All right, that's the word. Mepnei she'ein beis habliya panui. Turning to Daf Samachtes, Amid Beis. So Amar Rav Mana, Oy Bazoy, and all of that is just because of the amen. Hada Amra. So really, what are we seeing over here? That ahon, on that person, the otish that sneezes, going mechla during the meal. Also, you can't say now. You have so many different girsois. Here, our girsa is yes. If you look inside the Shinu Nuschais, Zom, Zat, Asvasa, or pronounced Asusa, in Yiddish, Gesundheit. Now let it do that. Why? Begin, Sakanta de Nafsha, because your very soul is in danger. As says that Pnei Moshe on top of the Amid, Mishan es Atesh B'tech Sudasi. Ein loimer loy, yes, which means, yes means refuah, from Asvasa, Asa. Yi loy la aso refuah. It should be healthy for you. Why can't you say that? Which is what you commonly say. As Chazal tell us that before Yaakov Avinu, right, Yaakov was chayla. Before Yaakov Avinu, people were healthy, and then they passed away. What happened before they passed? They sneezed, and they passed away. Now you can get sick, and you can spend time before you pass away. So you wish a guy for shalem. So b'shvil sakanas nefesh shalei yichani. B'pnei she'em b'yaseh b'yaplanu. Shaharei afilu la amein amru shalei ya'ana b'toich hasur b'pnei sakana. That's in other words, you would think, what's the sakana to have a whole long shmooze? Saying one word. The only reason why you can't do Baravam is because since Yimalu Piti Losecha would demand of you to say Amen, which by the way, the solution would be don't say Amen. Then you invite to be good. No, but we want you to do the mitzvah perfectly. If you can't say Amen, I don't even want to rely on the Shemaya Ka'ina. One word puts you in a sakana. One Gesundheit has more syllables than Amen. That's why maybe yes and Amen. See, yes is a chiddush because Amen is 2 syllables, right? Yes is only 1. I think that's what the Gemara is trying to say. Oh, you're not according to, for sure. We had this in the Bible also.
eating, you silently eat, no talking, no learning.
What you're
nothing.
doing is you can tell your people, for you, Danny, that you're stopping to eat. You're talking, but they should keep quiet. They should only listen. And you do your thing. Yeah. But now, what was the next thing the Mishnah says? That they used to bring mugmar. Mugmar was an incense. And we're going to get into a whole sugya. We didn't give it the proper whole intro about the brachas that you make for samim. We're going to have a big chiddush in this Gemara, a big chiddush, that we said a few daf ago as an intro to what happens if various foods are placed in front of you and you want to know which bracha do you make first. We gave three big rules which compete at times, which is what makes things interesting. One of the big klalim, which we paskin, is like, for example, we will always say shahakal at the end. Why? Because shahakal is a more generic bracha. It covers more things. And hadama and all the other brachas, they are more specific. And we paskin that if you have to pick and choose which one takes priority, that which is more specific, is more chashuv, is more important, comes before the one that's more general. We're going to learn in our sugya the opposite logic. And I want you to know that this opposite logic means when it comes to psamim, we're going to see a shita that holds that any statement that isn't only mishabeach Hashem for a specific fragrance, but it's mishabeach Hashem boire mine psamim, which is Ashkenazim, right? By the Sfardim, you find more that they give itzbei psamim and they give all different specifics. In psamim, we're going to have a shita that holds the more generic is more chashuv. Okay, that's going to be everything up until the Mishnah. But let's begin with the book. Now, the Mishnah almost contradicted itself. The Mishnah says that if yain comes in the middle of a meal, everyone makes on themselves, because we just said, because there's a sakana. Sakana is no fashis. Okay. If mugmar comes in the middle of the meal, so what did the Mishnah say? So just to know how it worked, they normally would bring mugmar at the end of the meal. And if that were to happen, one person would make a bracha for all. Who would make it? Whoever you want to be machabed. The Mishnah taught you a rule that if mugmar is brought in the middle of the meal, since you're b'toich hasuda, the one who made hamoitzi should be the one making the bracha on mugmar for everyone else, because he was honored to make the bracha for everyone. Everything b'toich hasuda. If you need a bracha, one should make for everyone. I have a big kasha. How can b'chlal one make for everyone? Same problem. If he will make it, I know they're reclining. So b'rava madras melech. But because of Yimala Beiti Hilosecha, everyone should answer Amen. If they're middle of a meal, they can be eating food or chewing or swallowing when they answer Amen. They might choke. Why didn't you say that everyone should make their own bracha on mugmar? It doesn't flow the Mishnah. That's what the Gemara is asking. Simple. So answers the Gemara, this is big. That mugmar kula merichin. When you bring mugmar in the room, everyone smells it right away. And there's a rule that you're not allowed to have pleasure, benefit from Olam Hazeh prior to making a bracha. When you bring wine into the room, until when you taste the wine, you're not having hana'ah. So by wine, there is an option of what everyone should make on their own. By mugmar, you don't have such an option. But on the other hand, but the Gemara doesn't have to verbalize Yerushalmi is bekitzir, amen should not be said. That's what I meant by competing values. In other words, on one hand, B'Rav Amadras Melech B'chlal tells you it's better for one to make it for all. The reason why yayin, everyone makes it, because if one is making it for all, not only do you want Shemei Koinu, you want Yimala Beiti Hilosecha. But that you can't do, there's a sakana. So what's the solution by wine? Everyone should make it on their own. Here, you don't have the solution for everyone making it on their own, because if I'm going to wait until when the mugmar will come to me, until when I'll finish chewing, in the meanwhile, I'm having hana from the smell, from the good fragrance. So a bracha has to be made right away. You might as well do it, but Rabbi Madras smell. You might choke. Don't answer. I mean, that's the way I think. Yayin mugmar kol marichin. Yayin echot toyim, like the Charedim says. Mugmar kol marichin. 10 lines from the top. Kol emen. Habugmar miyad. Shemivien oisim kol marichin and hanim imenu. Lefikach echad mevarach lekulam upoiter es kolam b'shmiya. Poiter es kolam b'shmiya. See, the Charedim doesn't say you say amen, because I think you're not allowed to say amen. We just had before. The Gemara says that asur l'meimar yes, you can't say amen. Verstehst? Yayin, wait. Beautiful. Now let's speak about brachas on psamim. Says the Gemara. Rab Ze'eda, in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah, mugmar is incense, so there's smoke coming up. Kiven, from when do you make the bracha? Kiven shehe'ela asham sarach levarach. The moment the smoke is starting to come up, you have to make the bracha. What is the point that he's making? He's making a big point that when smoke begins coming out of the incense, the smoke did not yet reach your nostrils. Nevertheless, we're reading the Charedim. You did not smell it yet. However, just like when you make hamoitz. Think about today, it's common Friday night, Shabbos day, we're eating a balabas, you're making hamoitzi, right? And everyone else is just hearing the bracha. When is the hamoitzi made? Right before you eat? No, not right before you eat. They have to cut the bread. We learned the whole sugya that the hamavarech has to swallow the bread first. It can take a minute. It can take 30 seconds. Nevertheless, that's this. In other words, it doesn't, even though take if lebracha achila, we tolerate a certain pause if there's a reason. Saint, that's the chiddush. The moment you see the incense, the moment you see the smoke, make a bracha. You didn't, mamish, okay, just afagav dakata leyochel. But datoi lemechal. The moment you see the smoke, make a bracha. Makes a lot of sense. No, not very good. Very good. Make the bracha. That's the whole point. Make a bracha. Because when I see the smoke, the smell comes to me very quickly. Very quickly. It can take 20 seconds. It can take 10 seconds. Make the bracha now. What will be the alternative? Let me wait until when I smelled it. What happens then? How do I know this? How do I know it came to me? Because I'm already smelling it. It's too late. I was nena moilamaza b'loy bracha. Says in Rabbi Yirmiyah, ba'a mivdoik l'rab zo'oida. Whether it's zo'oida, whether it's ze'ira, which is a common practice, especially in the older generation, that the elders, they farher the youngsters, and they terrify them, and they terrorize them, and they make the whole experience moidadik, and that's the way it used to work. So, but it's a good thing because it keeps them on their toes. For them, Rabbi Yirmiyah wanted to farher Rab Ze'era. So Amalei, he asked him, Ketzar hu oimer al shemen arev. Now, according to most, shemen arev is specifically balsam oil. Balsam oil was something that Eretz Yisrael was uniquely blessed with. So it demands its own bracha. Because when you make a bracha on something, that, just like when you make the after bracha, Shivas Haminin, you make a special after bracha. Because that's another way of thanking God for the...
So how do you... See, the highlight of the month. You have a big merit.
So,
I think everybody gets such a merit to.
I don't know, Reuven, who you are. First of all, nice to meet you. But if you can keep yourself on mute, that would be very helpful. Okay. So, Amalei, Ketzad, hu oimer al shemen arev. What bracha do you make on balsam oil? So, Amalei, listen to this, guys. So we get used to this. Asher nosan reyach toiv b'shemen arev. In other words, you make a specific bracha for the balsam oil, and you should know throughout the sugya, the lashon in the Bavli would be boire shemen arev. Just get used to that switch over. Yeah. But boire shemen arev. And however, that the Rebbe, the teacher, corrected his Talmud. No. Rabbi Yirmiyah told him 1 second. That not to make it that specific, not to say boire shemen arev, but what he has, asher nosan reyach toiv ba'atzei psamim. See, atzei psamim is more generic. Balsam oil comes from wood. By the way, in the Yerushalmi, that would be David boire atzei psamim. So either boire shemen or boire atzei psamim, and that's the big topic. In other words, this Yerushalmi here, the sheet of Rabbi Yirmiyah here is that if you have to pick and choose, a bracha that's being mishabeach Hashem on general is better than making a bracha that's praising Hashem for something specific. This goes against the rule that we have. So this is a big thing. And that was the machlek between the Rebbe and the Talmud. The general, the specific. If you want to thank God, in other words, when you compliment a person, you can compliment a specific midah or you compliment you. What's a greater compliment? Honey, why do you love me? Why do you see in me? Be careful. Say, no. The biggest, you, because according to this, you covered all your bait, because now you got the whole, it's on the person. It's greater than the specifics. Sometimes it won't work. It depends on the moment. Okay, now, says the Gemara like this. Yitzchak bar Abba, interesting, without a Rab, without a Rebbe. Bar Machasio, none of them were titled. And Rav Chananel, have a Yosvin, And what happened over there? Here's the issue: that they had certain herbs or plants that became hardened, and they were giving off a good fragrance. They want to make a bracha. So Chad Omar Baruch Shenosan Reyach Toy Ba'atzei Psamim. What would that be again in the Bavli? The way we boire Atzei Psamim, right? So Ba'atzei. And V'chad Omar Baruch Shenosan Reyach Toy Be'esev Ha'aretz. Now, what they were smelling was more asev. It was something, it was not a tree. Question is, can you use the word tree if something is not a tree? Where do we have this? How do you define a tree? So we just had before, a tree is defined when it comes to Weder Priya Eitz by something that not only does it have a trunk and branches, but whatever comes out of the branch will come out again, residual from the same branch. That's not the case by that what they smell. When they smell, whatever they cut off is done. So Masav Man Damar, the one who said Esav Haaretz, who felt that his bracha is accurate because it's more Esav than Eitz, to the one Laman Damar Ba'atzei Psamim, and he asked them, V'chi Eitzim Hein, they're not trees. So Amalei that we find elsewhere, and he's quoting a pasuk in Yeshua, when Rachav Hazoina was harding the spice, and it says Vaksiv Vatip Menem, she hid them bepishtei ha'eitz, pishton, flax. Why did she call them pishtei ha'eitz? Technically, because she hid them at a time that the flax stalks became hardened like a tree. So when it comes, it's correct to say eitz. In other words, he's not giving you a wrong bracha. Now let's go back to the previous topic. What is more specific? What's more general? Esev or eitz? I think eitz is more specific. I think eitz is more specific. Like B'rei Priya eitz is more specific than B'rei Priya Adamo. I think this is also back, yeah, I get it. You could say the words. What were they debating? To be more specific, to be more general, maybe. Salkon Beisanav, and they heard Vishamun Bar Chuna in the name of Rav that you make a body Atzei Psamim. Ashenos Aniach Toiv Ba'atzei Psamim. In other words, don't say Esev, say Atzei. So now they knew from how they did it in the house of Rav the right bracha to make on any type of kaneh that is now hard, what to make. Like you have a cinnamon stalk, yeah, or you have a clove. I don't know how we got into the cloves. But you know that cloves, if you are in the perfume business, if it starts to smell a little bit like cloves, it's haraya that it's going off. And B'chlal, cinnamon has so many schools, like if you can pick and choose what to smell for. Because I'm curious why some Ashkenazim smell cloves. Could be it was just because that's all they had. Cinnamon is so much better. It's healthier. It does something. It has other schools to it. Yeah. Kinamon was used in the Beis Hamikdash and the Ketores for sure. Okay, right. Now, Geniva Amar Shemen L'Zohama. Shemen L'Zohama with Mechila of the Frenchies. Some people have a minhag. They don't bath. They don't bathe. They don't shower. They stink. So what they do is that they put, it's called a perfume bath, right? In other words, French bath. You know what they're doing is, they're putting on something that smells good, not for the good fragrance, not for a positive, but to take away a negative. Lahoyer, parenthetically, I don't think it takes away the negative. I think you have both the positive and the negative. I think that's something else, but let's assume that it works. So he's giving a big klal that Shemen Zohama ain't Sarach Levarach. In other words, when you remove a negative, you don't have to make a bracha. And Amar Rav Yudan, afilu kavui l'toich yadoi, even if you pulled so much of good fragrance in your hand, to take away the bad, you only needed a little bit, but you poured beyond what was needed to take away the bad smell. Doesn't matter. If the reason why I'm putting stuff in my hand and I'm going to splash it on my cheeks, imagine how these Frenchies do it, is all because to take away a bad odor, that's the kavanah, then you don't make a bracha. For sure. Deodorant. Well, on cologne, I think you could make. I think on deodorant, I think that will be the difference. Okay. Now, Pchelboy, in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, Hamerabetz, Alintis, B'toich Beisoy. Being Merabetz was a common practice that when they had dirt floors, earthen floors, and the earthen floors would normally at times allow for dust to rise up. So they would have to Bimarabetz. Merabetz is you spray it with water to keep the dust down. Now, alintis happened to be a thing that had in it not only water. He brings over here the charedim from the Babli. There was also good wine. There was a balsam oil. What's alintis was not needed for the purpose of being merabetz. For that, water would have been enough. So you're using something fragrant, but what are you doing? The ikir is you're putting down the dust. So he's saying the same concept that hamerabetz alintis b'toich beisoy ein tzarich levarech. Maybe you can also add that in people's homes the issue wasn't only dust, but maybe in people's homes you have an issue that there can be bad odors. So why would someone use this expensive alintis to be merabetz? Because they wanted to deodorize. Deodor. In other words, to take away a bad odor, no bracha. Amar Chizda. I'm going to give you this generic bracha on all different types. I had before a question, right? When you have the herb, you have a tree. Ashenas and reach toiv ba'atzei psamim. Atzei. However, you can say atzei for almost everything. I think atzei, Danny, is more, that's it. Atzei is more generic. What's atzei includes eitzim. Atzei includes izbei. But there's one thing that's not included in that, musk. Bar mehahon muskin, musk. Because musk, the Rambam Machlekes Rishonim, the Rambam says it comes from a deer. The Rambam says it comes from a blood of a certain Indian deer. You have remember Rashi, it comes from the sweat of an Indian deer. I'm not talking about the today synthetic fake. I'm talking about the real. So a bar menah deer, what do? So you can't say atzei, even though atzei is generic. You know what you have to say? The yemar, you have to say ashenas and reach toiv b'minei psamim. Guys, this is ours, boydei minei psamim. We have 3 more minutes, and we're not going to let Rabbi Blauner agree. So we'll do it like this, guys. This I want to conclude that the Hashgacha process we started learning Yerushalmi by the kever of the Rambam, and even though there is a rule that Babli Yerushalmi. Generally, most paskin like the Babli. By the Rambam, there are many exceptions to the point that maybe the Rambam doesn't even follow this klal, and this will be a big exception. So maybe just to speak on the following. First of all, the Mishnah gives a simple rule, Mishnah Zayin, that we already had before, that whenever you eat 2 foods, if they are related one to the other, one is eaten because of the other, then you have to determine which one is called the primary food, the ikid, which one is called the subservient one, the secondary one, the tafel, and you only make the bracha on the ikir, and that patters the tafel. The Mishnah wants to make a point that it's shaykh, that the klal of ikir and tafel will even go on bread. There are times that even the bread will be considered a tafel, and if that would be the case, in that case, you don't make hamoitz, so you don't wash, you don't bench, and that's even if the food that you're eating is a shahakal. So the Mishnah opens up, if you're having moliyah. Now, moliyah here in the Yerushalmi refers to salty fish. And upas imay, and you have bread with it. You're only eating the bread to be able to tolerate the saltiness of the fish, of the herring. Then says the Mishnah, mevarech ala moliyah upaiter asapas. You only make a bracha amalei, which is shahakol, and you don't make a bracha at all on the path. Why? Because shapas tfeil aloi and zah klal, and that's the klal that kol shu ikar v'yam tfeilam. Mevarach al ikar upaiter tfeilam. And Rabbi Kiva Eger says that there in brachas, and Babli says a gavaldik word. Zah klal is coming to add something because the case the Mishnah gives is on a shahakol. Now we already learned that biddi eved, if you mistakenly set a shahakol on something, on anything, you're yoitz. Maybe because you're making a shahakol, you don't have to make a bracha on the bread. What would be if there would be other brachas, non-shahak? Mishnah says no matter what, you make the bracha on the ikir and you don't make the bracha on the salad. Caesar salad that you have a little piece of bread. Now I want to say like this. Here, just speak out the charedim by heart and then we'll take up again. Guys, listen to this. If you open up a Babli, that's brachas daf mem dalid, right? Yeah. So he writes over there. When the same Mishnah, the Gemara is challenged with this. The bread is a tafel. You can open the Yosef over there. The Gemara says the Mishnah is speaking about Peter's genoisar. Peter's genoisar is the Peters that we eat, the Peters that grows around the Yam Kineres. They are very special and they are very sweet. Really, there's a machlokes Rashi Tosfos. I'm going to just tell you what Tosfos says very clearly. Someone ate Peter's genoisar, meaning praise. And because of the sweetness, this is like the diabetes, he got weakened from the sugar. So to counter the sweetness of the Peter's genoisar, he needed to eat something salty. And now to counter the salt and the salty herring, he has to have the bread. All of that means, lebavli, that if you just have herring and crackers, you make the bracha on the cracker. The only reason why in the Bavli, Saila Rashi, Saila Toisvis, you make the pas is a tafel, because the whole meal wasn't about the maliyah. The meal was about Pedis Genoiser, which is very chashuv. So since you're eating something chashuv and you're only having the fish, the counter, the mamash, the way he says it. You have to read the whole Toisvis with details. Toisvis noch says, why would you even make a shahakal? He's asking. In other words, really, so Toisvis says, because when you ate the Pedis Genoiser, you didn't know you're going to get weak from the fruit. The sugar threw you off. So therefore you didn't know, you thought you're only eating those fruits. Now you chap, oh my God, I have to do something to counter the bad effect of the Pedis Genoisa. In other words, only there. And here the Yerushalmi doesn't bring at all Pedis Genoisa. So look inside the Charedim at 701 already. So the Yerushalmi asks, the Rambam doesn't mention Pedis Genoisa. That's what he's called. The Rambam says, yeah, that if you have fish, moliach with bread, you make a shahakal. But that's only according to the Yisrael. Tzarachiyun, look inside the last line of the Charedim. Because the Babli is the Basra. And over here, the Rambam passes like the Yerushalmi. To be continued.
So according to the Rambam, you just fish out, you just take your hadama, and that's it. You're going to make a bracha. No,
That's only according to. That's only according to the Yerushalmi. Why? The Mishnah says Iker Tafel, because we paskan like the Babli. What does the Babli say, David? The Babli says that this Mishnah is not fish and bread. Fish and bread, you got to make hamoitzi. You are eating Pedis Genois, so you have to. I should have really.
Cover up something else.
In other words, we have a rule that the minimum zoinus and the hamoitzi is so chashiv that we barely ever apply the rule.
Even
but complimenting means it's a tough.
It's tuffle, bro. It's tuffle.
We don't paskin like the Yerushalmi. That's the whole point. And the Rambam paskins like the Yerushalmi. Who is this Reuven, guys?